welcome to Craft, where we want to understand what goes behind great ideas and what's the process behind it. I know you don't like the word, but
I hate the word process.
but what's the method behind all the madness, right? While you don't need any introduction, everybody knows you're the founding partner of Voom, and you're a person with a lot of successful campaigns and all the accolades. But there is something that we don't know about you. Okay, I would like to also add, Navin is a great actor. Maybe you would want to talk about your acting career and how do you juggle both these things together, yeah?
Thankfully, over the last 10 years, we've built a team that allows me to juggle that side of things. So yeah, I mean, if I was not in advertising, I would have been an actor full time. But now that I am in advertising, I do a bit of acting in advertising. And we can talk about that in terms of what you said, method behind the madness. And of course, then I do my stuff outside of that, which is a lot of theater, and just finished a feature.
Oh, awesome.
I'm doing a web series at the moment, but yeah, I try and juggle.
Awesome. So, but what brought you into advertising in the first place? You could have been an actor.
No, I could have been. And the hatred for monotony. I remember when I was doing my MBA, my B school marketing prof was a gentleman called Nitin Gadiyar.
Okay.
Used to work with Warner Lambert. He was a guy behind Chiclets, the famous
of course.
Chiclets, halls, so on and so forth. And I remember him calling me aside after class once. I'd done my summer training in Unilever. And yeah, I'd done my summer training in Unilever, and he had asked us to make presentations about the summer training. And I made that presentation. And then he called me aside after class and he asked me, what do I want to do? After a few classes, he called me, not just after that presentation. And I said, I don't know, maybe marketing. And he said, no, I think you should be in advertising because A, you have an imaginative mind, but more importantly, he said you get bored very easily. Yeah. So boredom and hatred for monotony, I think, brought me to advertising. Because think about it. I mean, on an average day in advertising, I could be discussing automobiles in the morning. I could discuss,
absolutely,
and I could move to sand pads, and then I could move to diapers, and then I could move to soaps and shampoos. And in between all of this, meet a director who's making a film for us, possibly do a call with a celebrity, end up in front of a celebrity, discussing a campaign, be at a shoot, get bashed around with clients, get bashed around by clients also somewhere in between all this. But yeah, I mean, so it's a day that's always unpredictable.
yeah.
And
No 2 days are the same.
no 2 days are alike. No days alike. I mean, even within a day, there's so much that happens in there. And I prefer it that way. Of course, the number of categories you work on, clients you work with. So I think if you're a person who wants constant excitement and constant, challenges and being invigorated all the time, there are those personalities, type A. Advertising is the best place to do that.
No, that's the most honest answer I've heard. No, and you're absolutely right. I think even to me, I think what brought me into advertising was exactly this thing that no 2 days are going to be the same. And if you're going to be crafting ads about an aircraft, you don't need to be a pilot, right? So
it helps if you're a pilot, you could travel the world, but yeah. I love travel, by the way. You asked me what else do people don't know about me. I love travel.
So what is the essential skill today if somebody wants to enter advertising? What is that one skill that you feel is non-negotiable?
I think you have to love ideas. This business is extremely stressful, and it's getting more and more stressful as time goes by. I mean, I can tell you my time in Ogilvy to the time we started the Voom to today, the marketing environment has become far more challenging. AI is just the brink of almost everything that's going to happen. So things will only get tougher and only get more challenging and only get more competitive. And what holds you together in this business and keeps you in it is if you are excited about ideas. If ideas excite you, ideas that solve problems for consumers and for clients businesses. If you're excited by that nature of work, then it is something that is absolutely sort of imperative for you to have if you want to come into this business today. But if you're sort of lukewarm about ideas, if you see it as another job, then I think you should work in a bank, not in. I did once for 6 months, and I ran back. I won't name the bank. You can research it. It had nothing to do with the bank. I just hated the bank. So, but yeah, I mean, you could work in a bank because beyond the point, that job is more process oriented.
Yeah.
This is more imagination oriented. I would say, and therefore, I think that has to be at the heart of who you are. Are you imaginative? Are you excited by ideas? Because just to get one idea out, and I'm going to use a baby analogy being from the womb.
Sure.
Just the fact from the time it starts to the time you actually deliver that idea out into the world, I think it's a fairly painful,
it's a
fairly painful
process. Yeah.
fairly painful journey. If you don't enjoy it, you won't.
Yeah.
You won't.
No, you have to enjoy the process.
Yeah, you won't stay in it for long. So yeah,
True.
I think that's the non-negotiable.
So let's rewind a little bit. So I know you say that like you don't like the word process, but there has to be a method to thinking of ideas, right? And one common thing that a lot of young creative people do is saying they get in a room and say we are sitting here and brainstorming, but it doesn't. There has to be some spark, some starting point. So what happens when a brief lands on your table? What's the first step? What do you focus on?
Okay, at least the way the womb works, we're not waiting for a brief from the client. Yeah, we've been fortunate that our clients have opened their doors for us to be able to talk directly, work directly on a daily basis with the CEOs and the CMOs of pretty much every organization that we work with. And therefore, we're in constant conversation with them. Right?
So what are 3 questions that instinctively that you ask?
That's what I'm saying. It's not, we don't discuss a brief being a comms brief or a brand brief. We are always discussing business. Okay. And the briefs come out of that. Okay. Right? And when you're discussing business, you're discussing ways to grow a particular vertical brand, so on and so forth, right? But closer to home, if you were to say that, okay, from that, what do you extract? I would say just focus on the task. I think otherwise the briefs and the briefing formats that we've been used to over the years, I think there's too much information in it, which honestly is not very helpful at times, right? What's the task? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to achieve? And then the creative job is how do you do it, right? What happens with this is also you tend to remain solution agnostic. Otherwise, what is it? I mean, the minute there's a brief, on the last, there'll be a mandatory, I've seen it so many times, mandatory 30-second TVC, right? The minute you put 30-second TVC, my mind is now only thinking 30-second TVC. But if it's saying, if the brief is about saying, okay, this is the problem, this is why the consumer is not buying this brand, right? If you are clear about articulating that problem, which in the case of the womb, Kaval, who's also the sort of CSO, actually leads that process, the front end of it. Just nailing the problem down. It is the most difficult thing in advertising is to nail the consumer problem, to nail the marketing problem. What is the consumer issue? What is the marketing issue that you're trying to solve? The day you can crack that, and then you just let it open for the creative people to say, ab kuch bhi solution lekar aao, ye solve hona chahiye. Because then your ideas are not restricted. Then, I mean, honestly, anybody can think of any idea, right?
Yeah, true.
Saregama, Karma, and I don't want to talk about it too much because I think it's been spoken about quite often. But it came from there. I mean, the business issue was, I've got 117,000 songs. How do I make money on this? That was the brief from the client.
Right.
So this was no comms brief, no brand brief, no communication brief. It was a business brief. How do I grow? How do I make money? Right? And of course, then you discuss saying, Acha, let's try and make these songs relevant to the youth. Everybody's talking to millennials, so let's also talk to millennials, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, we ended up with a product for the old. But long story short, I think stay focused on the task, articulate the problem. And to articulate the problem, I know Kaval and his team sweat the detail with consumers to an extent where sometimes I'm like, yeah, really, do we need to do so much? But I'm like, okay, I know why you're doing it, but then the way the problem gets articulated is so beautiful that even I would say even the most unimaginative person will have 3 ideas, right? So you can imagine people who are in our creative teams, how they respond when they hear a problem or they hear a proposition coming out of that problem, because sometimes there's a problem and then you also give people triggers saying, okay, if this is the problem, we have these 3 triggers or 3 ways that we feel we can solve this problem if these 3 messages went out. And then they pick and choose the messages that they want to deal with, or they want to work with, and then that you just totally open it up after that. So it allows you to remain solution agnostic. But I think articulating the problem is the most undervalued skill in this business.
Yeah, like you said, I think most people will end up just focusing on the deliverable, which would be saying, okay, I want to make a 30-second TVC, just completely jump to the deliverable. But I think the starting point, and I could almost imagine you thumping this table here saying task. So when you're saying task, it is understanding the business problem, peeling the layers and getting the root of it, right? That should be the starting.
Business issue, consumer issue, business issue, consumer issue.
Right.
Business issue है क्योंकि ये consumer issue है. Consumer issue को कैसे solve करोगे? उसके 3 तरीके हैं. You pick then the one, or you explore all. And at the womb, we stay agnostic to the solution for a very long time in the process, right? We stay agnostic. We try, okay, let's try it this way. Let's try it this way. Let's try it this way. Let's try it that way. Okay. And in the process, then you discuss. You say, hey, there's one more way coming through. We don't say, oh, but that was not discussed. Somebody comes up with a new way and say, okay, let's explore that. Let's see where that goes. Let's see where this goes. Let's see where that goes. Eventually, then you have to say, okay, guys, now we've been thinking about this for 2 weeks. We've got all this. What do we all feel? What will really solve the problem? What will actually get us the confidence to stand in front of a client who puts their faith in you to ask very often us, "Aap logo kya lagta hai?" And that's the toughest question to answer in advertising. When a client is asking you, tell us, what do you want to make? We've got to be very clear, and we've got to be very sure, more importantly. And that surety comes from doing the homework.
Yeah.
Having met the consumers.
If you have the conviction, you can.
Sounds very old school, I know.
Huh.
In the age of, LinkedIn polls and WhatsApp surveys, this sounds like a laborious, painful job. It is, but it's worth the while. When you see the end output, I think it's worth the while.
But I'm sure a lot of people will have this question, right? And say, let's just imagine a scenario saying a client has just killed, one of your favorite concepts. Not one of yours, but say one of your team members who was really passionate about it. They've killed the, concept, and the person is completely devastated, right? What would you tell them? How would you solve this?
What would I tell the person?
Yeah.
Luckily, all our clients, and I'm going to say it directly to them, are not the ones who, kill anything mercilessly. So thank you so much for that. We've been really lucky. No, we've been really lucky.
That happens a lot, right? Outside.
It happens a lot. Yeah. But we've been really lucky. And again, I think because the clients are not brought in to just see the advertising. The clients are being engaged with right from the time when you're discussing the problem. Right? Very often the solutions are self-evident. Obvious hai ye to solution. Obvious hai ye to. This proposition is obviously the best way to solve the problem. That's the place where you need to have the client at. Yeah, and they are often at that because they're working with you.
Right.
If this is the problem and this is the way you think proposition-wise I can solve it, and then it's an expression. Then the creative is just the expression of that proposition said in the most entertaining, engaging, interesting manner. And then it's subjective. And at that point of subjectivity is where the question gets asked, so what do you think? What do you want to make? And so if there are A and B, we say A. And that's a process that we do internally before we go out to the client saying, okay, the client's going to ask us A or B, which one? And we all say A. However, there is the guy who wrote B who's going to be disappointed. And that's part of your question.
No, yeah, but what if
A and B both get
both
rejected?
did reject?
यार होता नहीं है हमारे साथ.
आपके साथ नहीं हो रहा but होता है.
Elders जो कि होता है हमारे साथ भी कभी कभी हुआ है. What do you do? You say just get
No,
back.
what do you tell the person? How do you see either? There have been.
You know what people care about
Uh,
is did we all believe in it, and was there integrity in the way we sort of shared it with the client?
no, go ahead and revisit your idea. Again, ask the same question. Maybe you've not peeled enough layers, and you've not really articulated that solution well. Is that?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying your team members will always be happy to do one more completely new one
Sure.
if they feel that the way we have shared the idea with the client and the way we developed it internally and the conviction we all had was done with utmost integrity. Yeah. I don't find people honestly are fairly mature enough not to throw tantrums. Yeah. To say, oh, what, I mean, you're beating your legs and hands saying that, what the hell happened to my idea. But yeah, I think a lot of empathy. You have to understand that a creative person's life has more rejection than approval, right? And therefore, a lot of empathy, and that's one of the values that our values are integrity, empathy, and imagination. So empathy is at the heart of dealing with that situation with the creative person. But luckily, we are also a small organization, and therefore everybody has enough work that they really love that it gets produced. So I think over a period of time, everybody's realized you win some, you lose some. But in net, am I winning? Yeah. Net, in balance, am I getting some of the great work that I thought was great, as in whoever was writing it? If they feel more good work goes out rather than does not, then some sort of setbacks, drawbacks like that, I think they just take it on their chin and move on. I've not had a situation where everybody's actually
do good work.
Yeah.
Now, everybody wants their work to go places.
Yeah.
So, is it is there a craft to selling your ideas? I think sometimes you have a great idea, but the way you are presenting it, the way you are selling it, maybe that needs a lot more work. Is there a method to that?
I think theater is the method to that. It's performance. It is not. Yeah, it is performance. It is performance. I mean, I know it sounds very.
No, I completely.
Yeah, and I'm not saying this because I am from theater, or it is a piece of theater. You have to put on a performance for a client, which has to be engaging, which has to connect with them, which they have to find persuasive enough for them to give you a green flag and say, okay, I agree. Let's go with this. We don't use the word selling in the womb, and because there is a bit of, when you use the word I'm selling to a client, two things happen.
Presenting to the client, let's say that.
Presenting to सब present करते हैं, but the point is present करके कोई मतलब नहीं है. You also have to ensure that it gets sold. Yeah, but I'm saying I don't think two things happen when you're talking selling. There is the beginning of an unequal power equation in that meeting. I am selling to you. You have to approve it for me. I think those days are gone, especially I think with the independent agencies, at least the way yourself as well, the way clients work is more as partners. We've always wanted them to do that, but I think Kaval and I have experienced it now with the Womb, where clients are very, very engaged with the way they are creating work with you. And therefore, it is never selling to them. Yeah. And second, the reason we hate that word selling is it sounds manipulative, and nobody likes to be manipulated. Yeah. So we are sharing the work with you.
Yeah.
Very true. Our stakes are, and our interest in sharing the work with you and recommending a piece of work is because we believe that it will drive the growth agenda or the business issue or the consumer issue that we have all agreed upon. And that is the only reason why we are telling you A versus B.
Yeah.
There is no agenda to it.
No, absolutely. I think clients are smart enough as well, and they would love to partner you if you're solving problem for them. So absolutely. But yeah, no, I know about what you say about theater because, a little birdie keeps telling me that, when you would go and when your teams will go and meet clients, they would say, "Is Navin going to be in the presentation?" Because the way he presents is going to be very entertaining.
I don't know. I used to be good looking then. Not anymore. No, it's joke.
So looking good is another essential skill, huh?
I don't know about that. I'm not going to comment on that.
No. So no. Also, what another interesting thing is that you don't have a format or you don't have a structure where there's a national creative director. So how does that work? Because I think I kind of subscribe to that. We also have a sign here on the ceiling which says ideas ahead there. Wow. Ideas are everywhere because we feel ideas can come from everybody. But how does that work? How do a lot of young people then get mentored, and what's the process?
Firstly, we apologize to the industry for not having a national creative director. But I think, again, Kaval and I hate operating within the box. The box says a creative agency cannot be started without a creative person at the helm of it. Kaval is a strategy guy. I'm a business stroke account management person. And we've done enough research and researched the world to know that in India we were the only ones, possibly, to start a full service creative agency without the so-called NCD. Yeah. What we chose at that time, and very consciously so, and today we have a designated chief creative officer whose name is Suyash Khabia. Yeah. A lot of the work, not just the good work, all the work that you see is under his sort of stewardship. But as a company, we are reticent to go out and talk in media as much as some others. So, which is why you may not have, heard him come out and speak a lot. We need to change that. But having said that, when we started, we were very clear that we did not want a national creative director whose personality would rub off on the kind of work that the agency produced. Because very often it has become that, oh, ye low type kaam hai, ye ogilvy type kaam hai. We didn't want something to be called the womb kind of work. The kind of work has to be what is correct for that particular brand, for the business issue and consumer issue. And you're going to keep hearing me say the same thing over and over again because we can't have a formula. So if you look at our website today, you won't find a pattern. Except about 4 years ago, we said, hey, I think maybe we need to define for ourselves what our philosophy is. And we found, if I looked at all the work that we've done, that the work was simple. 90% of the work, Kantar study globally, 90% of the work in the world suffers from lack of comprehension. Yeah. We don't suffer from that problem because our work is simple. It's the front end work that's done by Kaval and his team, of strategy people. Simple. How do you strip away all the things that are not required and just bring it down to its simplest form? Yeah. Then how do you bring it down to its simplest form in the creative expression of the solution so that it gets delivered in the manner and unignorable is the two patterns that we found, if at all, which is simple and unignorable. Yeah. And that's become, in hindsight, the creative philosophy with which we've operated.
Yeah, great ideas are simple, actually.
Yeah. So we do have a chief creative officer. The reason we did not choose one right at the beginning and we kept an open structure was because we didn't want to get defined by the personality of the creative head. But we chose people who were, 10, 12 years then into the business, and they've stayed with us now. But we're very hungry to do great work. Yeah. And we're very open-minded to sort of collaborate with an account management and a strategy person to develop the work, to create the work. So Kaval and I don't create the work. We don't even develop the work. If at all we contribute to the creative process of development, it's in the improvement of the work. It's in the picking of the work. It's almost to say that, okay, there are 3 scripts. Okay, isko aise karke, usko thoda, maybe we change the story here, maybe we add that there, maybe we delete this here. It's just the tweaking of the
but
stuff.
You're creating a collaborative environment. Yeah?
Absolutely. And we've got, we're equally split actually in the company. We're about 80 odd people. If you remove 10 people odd who are the not the creative strategy, so all the support staff. the balance 75 odd people is equally split between strategy, creative, and account management.
So if I'm somebody who's not done anything remotely creative, okay, maybe I've done, say, engineering or whatever, right? And I come to you saying I want to be a creative, right? Take me. How would you?
Like I mentioned, our third value is imagination and not creativity for a reason. Because we feel creative somehow feels it's a special skill and you're part of a special department or a specific department, right? Everybody's imaginative. A 1-year-old child is imaginative, right? So to that extent, we have if somebody walked in and we gave him a copy test of sorts, sometimes just spoke to him, found him interesting, we've taken them on, yeah. But all these people after 2 years want to leave because they want to create content. Yeah. So anyway, that's a separate story. But yeah. So I'll give you anecdotes from my own company. So there was a guy who started with us, a guy called Rohit Sharma. He started.
I know.
He started in account management with us. We were a startup, all of 5-6 people, and we did Kya Chal Raha Hai, Fog Chal Raha Hai. And he was like, I can't do these tapes. I can't send material anymore in my life. I am moving to strategy. So he moved to strategy. So he did strategy for whatever 4 years or then he's like, बस यहाँ पे बहुत research हो रहा है मैं इतना research नहीं कर सकता मैं अभी जा रहा हूँ creative. So we said, okay, you do all the non-television initiatives, why don't you head? But the fact is the Truecaller film that
he wrote the
So Truecaller was his first campaign, and the recent Symphony campaign that came out is his. The recent Rasna work that came out is his. The promo work that came out is his. So I'm saying he's not from the creative department, so to speak. Yeah, and there are enough and more examples like that in the womb where strategy people have given the starting point for scripts, which have become eventually films and that have gone out. Kaval and I have had scripts that have been produced. So the Mivi work, the audio headphone work, the silent film was something that Kaval and I created. The Saregama Karwan, the film where the dog gets disturbed by the crackers, was Kaval's idea. Kya Chal Raha Hai, Fog Chal Raha Hai is as a line is Kaval's line. So it has okay. The one thing that we learned, and a lot of our DNA is set and created, especially mine, by working with Piyush and Ogilvy. The entire ecosystem, the entire agency has to be buzzing with ideas. If it is only one department that's buzzing with ideas, you will never make a great ideas company. Everybody has to be buzzing with ideas. Everybody should have the freedom to share those ideas. And everybody should see that some of those ideas, if good, are also actually getting made. And everybody should also have the freedom to be stupid.
True.
At times. You know, if you don't allow for stupidity, you will get a bank. I'm sorry, I keep saying bank.
The starting point, like you said, right? Saying that you need to strip down a brief, get down to being it very simple, right? What has happened is that with attention spans, dropping completely down, there is that tendency to do work which is more of a stunt, right? And then sometimes you lose focus on the actual business problem, right? How do you navigate that? Is it because there is now that the attention span are dropping? Is there a need to do more stunt work because your regular storytelling probably needs to evolve? Maybe it's no longer that effective.
Yeah. What's the purpose of a stunt according to you?
Grab attention, right?
So unignorable.
Yeah,
which is what?
Right, because it's scrolling on your feed.
Exactly.
10 seconds are a norm, lesser, 3 seconds, I don't know.
Yeah. So I personally think brands need to do all kinds of work. So if you imagine the whole comms architecture of a brand to be hero hub hygiene, which is what a lot of digital agencies have taught me, in how to manage the social media stuff. But if I just took the comms architecture, not just being digital, but everything, then the hero hub hygiene model will have a place for stunts. will have a place for stunts. Like, for instance, if I said I did 4 hub activities once a quarter, I would do something that will, create instant awareness for the brand and its proposition. Okay, it could be slightly stunty, and that's totally fine, because fame, and there's a huge study again by, I think it's Ipsos, if I'm not wrong, but anyway, no, sorry. Anyway, a huge study which links fame to commercial success of brands, right? So brands that are famous or do famous work, it adds up to their top and bottom line. Yeah, so it's an empirically proven global study. So that's important. But if you make your brand only stunty, which many brands tend to do, you people actually do not even, over a period of time and after a lot of spends, still don't land on an understanding what the proposition of the brand is. Yeah, I have a very famous example which I've quoted elsewhere, so I'm going to refrain from quoting it. Yeah, but look at your ads on IPL. I'm like 90% of the time I don't even know what they're trying to say, right? Because they're just trying to do a stunt because it's 20 seconds and it's in the middle of IPL. So let me just stand out and I'll just say anything and just, But after that, I'm like, okay, they spend 90 crores, 150 crores, 200 crores, but I've just still not understood even sometimes what the product is, or what the aspects of the product are. So I think there's a place for everything. There's a place for stunt. There's a place for, hero kind of work, which is well thought through, strategic, good proposition, great creative expression, simple, unignorable, blah, 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 blah. And then there is the place for the hygiene stuff, which could be influencers and so on and so forth. So if you think of it as a full 360 comms architecture, then you will have a place for fame-driving ideas, I would say. Now, some could be stunts, some may not be, but fame-driving ideas have a place.
So that should be the starting point, saying how do we get famous? How do our ideas get famous?
That has to happen even on television, by the way. It's not just on digital or only for the the hub ideas. It has to be everywhere. And secondly, I think this notion of attention span, while it's true, I just want to know where, people just, you do a WhatsApp poll tomorrow and you ask how many would like an episode to be dropped once a week, like White Lotus was doing, or you would like all the episodes to be dropped together. Right? I would say more than 80% of people would say together. I know a lot of people who are waiting for all the episodes of White Lotus to come so that they could binge watch. Which means if your content is good, Adolescence, I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Patal Lok, Family Man. You think of the better shows, you will binge watch them. So where is the attention span there then? So I think it's just convenient, okay? Because you are trying to, and it's something that's been propagated by the platforms, the digital platforms themselves, okay? Because you're saying, hey, this is bottom of the funnel, middle of the funnel. Who decided this bottom funnel, middle funnel, etc.? Yeah? Who decided? I don't think consumers are moving today in a very linear fashion. They are going circular, they're going zigzag, they're doing in whichever way they want, they're going. Their decision-making process is not linear anymore. Yeah, I think it has rarely been. Okay, only in the days of when one or two mediums were there, were you doing a linear decision-making process, right? So if that's not,
I mean, linear in the form of the frequency in which the way you're exposed to the brand, right?
So that's fine, but
you're probably very close to buying that product or service.
That's fine,
and that where you need that last little nudge.
Yeah,
that's going to be that can be your really short.
That's your hygiene content, I would say. Yeah, you just push them over the edge in that sense to say.
So what's happening is a lot of brands are just skipping the first two, right? So they are completely focusing on performance, right?
It's like quick commerce, and then there's quick advertising.
Yeah. So brand building as a process is completely being skipped in most cases.
Yeah. You need to think of full funnel. You need to think of how the decisions are being made, and then follow that consumer through that decision-making process, hand-holding them to an eventual purchase. That's full funnel work. In that, performance marketing has a role to play, and just play that much. Don't make it the whole thing.
True. So also in a scenario like this, even talent, wants to join advertising, right? Even they need to be full funnel, like a full stack in a way. So
they are full funnel. If you think of it many ways, they are all full funnel.
No, but maybe a little more investing. So if I'm a performance marketer, I'm only spending my time in between spreadsheets. Wouldn't it help if I'm spending a lot more time, maybe just watching, great advertising?
No, that always helps. But the reality is there are specialists and there are generalists. There are the orchestrators and then there are the doers. I'm saying as long as the orchestrator, the integrator is full funnel, but works with specialists, I think that's still fine. It's still
Or at least create some sort of an environment to get them exposed.
exactly. But that's the job of the integrator anyway. See, because the reality is, what are you integrating basis? Are you integrating basis the creative idea, the brand idea, the business idea, the proposition? What are you integrating basis? A lot of poor 360s when you take a campaign idea and start making it 360.
Yeah.
That's poor integration.
Yeah. So when I'm saying this, I'm saying that yes, you have a platform specialization, but you also need to have understanding of how brands are built.
Exactly.
So exposing yourself to not just the little world that you have of saying I'm very good with Meta or I'm very good with Google and I'm very good with YouTube, but understand the other aspects of brand.
Which is the job of the integrator also, to ensure that, like you said, the ecosystem is created where everybody appreciates and understands everything, but does what they're great at,
right?
Or deep dives into what they're great at.
And there's also individual initiative to understand.
Which is why I'm saying that the starting point has to be the proposition of the brand. Yeah. You're integrating from there. Now you're integrating from there. Your specialization is TV, but my specialization is performance marketing. But what I'm fundamentally not going to lose sight of is what the proposition is. It doesn't mean that if I'm doing a 50% off on performance marketing campaign, it should be devoid of the brand idea or the proposition. I think the best ones still hold on to it.
Right. Imagine I'm a brand manager of a conservative or a traditional brand. How would you convince me to do a very bold idea without scaring me off?
I won't. I don't mean to be supercilious, but I'll explain this to you. Okay. Imagine you're a father. Actually, before that, imagine you see a building that is burning. There's a fire. Would you jump in and try and save anybody inside?
Maybe not.
But imagine you're a father and there's a child inside, your child inside. You'll jump in, right? Now, were you taking a bold decision, a brave decision? Was that bold or brave?
Brave.
Was it brave? It was your child inside.
Yeah.
Or was it just driven by something else?
Driven by love for the...
Yeah. So, you know what? Clients, actually, the minute you tell them, do this, it's a brave idea, do this, it's a bold idea, they will run in the opposite direction. Yeah, they don't want to do bold or brave ideas. They want to do, especially a brand manager in a conservative company, wants to do an idea that will work, yeah, and will get him his next promotion and will make his boss happy. Yeah, and nothing wrong with that. But fundamentally, it has to work for him from the point of the growth initiative that he is looking for. So if you are able to actually convince the client, whoever, whatever level, that this idea will deliver on this growth and they are convinced about it, then actually the nature of the idea could be bold, could be creative, could be crazy, could be outrageous, could be outlandish, could be stunt, whatever it is, they will buy it. They have to believe in this. They have to believe in the fact that you are delivering that idea to them to drive growth or to solve that problem. I know I keep saying the same thing, but unfortunately, that is the truth. That the best, boldest, creative ideas have been sold when the client's convinced that that idea is actually solving his problem. They are really not going in and trying to buy the boldest, most craziest, outrageous idea out there. It's not. Then that's not their agenda. Even if you look at the Burger King work, which has been famous for a long time, each of those pieces did a particular job for them. Each of those pieces did a particular job for them, right?
But then you see some brands consistently doing, bolder ideas. And so Burger King, consistently did bold ideas, but, the other brands did not, right?
Like which ones?
So even within the category, say maybe their competition would not, maybe a Wendy's would probably not do, bold enough work as
no, see,
it's also the DNA.
But that's exactly what I'm trying to say, that I don't think the starting point has to be I want to do bold work.
Absolutely.
It
Of course, it has to be
has
business
to
impact.
yeah, it has to be work that will work, and there are different schools of thought and there are different philosophies for every client that is more conservative in their crafting of the kind of work that they like. There are clients who are the exact opposite. One fact, however, is that what you call bolder work, okay, let me call it unignorable work that will
Yeah,
hit you,
absolutely.
costs less money to put out because there is an inherent virality associated with such ideas. Yeah. But sometimes we put the cart before the horse and say, hey, chalo, let's just do a viral idea. A brief, we want a viral
That's the brief you also get.
Yeah, exactly. We want a viral video.
Viral.
No. Why do you want a viral video? For what? For what? So for what? If it's answered clearly, yeah, then you do viral video. There's no harm in that. Or you may not do a viral video. I may do a product. I may do something else. I may do an activation idea. I may do an experiential idea. I may just do one post. It's not a video at all. So I don't think clients want to do bold ideas. That's not their agenda and shouldn't be their agenda. They want to do work that works. If that happens to be an idea that's out there and in your face and bold and creative and outrageous and outlandish and a stunt or whatever it is, so be it. So which is why I said that if, how will I try and sell a bold idea to a client? I won't try and sell a bold idea to him. I won't sell it to him by telling him it's bold. He's going to run in the opposite direction, or she, for that matter.
So, but, and, another thing that probably would be on everybody's mind is deadlines, So how do you navigate, deadlines with real world production pressures, And considering you do so many high production films, how do you balance this? So what is that area that you'll not compromise on? So because if you have to meet some deadlines and if you have to say, cut down on certain production elements or, get certain... So what craft do you compromise and what...
No, we don't compromise on anything ideally.
You shouldn't, right?
No, you shouldn't. You wouldn't. So this is not a straightforward answer because it's not about a process, but it's a mix of many things. Obviously, the first thing is that I know that this brand has to be on IPL, let's say. Yeah. But that deadline is not changing. Yeah, that's a specific date.
Yeah, true.
World Cup is a specific date. World Cup football, whatever. Sporting live events very often are specific dates. The beginning of KBC is a specific date. The beginning of Big Boss. There are properties that have specific dates which cannot be shifted, and those are given, and you live with that. And therefore, if you know that your brand is going to be on those on those properties, obviously the first step is to plan. And handle the client to the point where we say, okay, we need to lock these things. We need to lock these things by certain dates, right? But often we realize, and I'm sure all of us realize that despite our best intentions, networks are not followed to the T. You will have a plus or minus 15 days sometimes, but the end date's not shifting. That's where I think if you're right, your relationships, especially when you're making big budget, big films, your relationships with those producers, directors comes in handy a big way. For instance, I can tell you recently we were making a film for Rasna. Broadly we knew the zone that we were landing a script on. Even before we actually had the script presented to the client, I presented to the director. I had not shared it with the client yet. I said, okay, this is the film. This is what we're going to sell. This is what we're going to, get them convinced about. So I need these dates around this time because it's summer and I can't be delayed. So blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So you sometimes even do that cheat where and it's not a cheat really. It's just being smart about the planning. If you know that this is where you are headed and this is what you want to make, you already share it. You already block tentative dates. And then I know I'm getting into absolute detail of how this works out.
Yeah.
Yeah. What really helps if your script is absolutely outstanding. Yeah, because then directors will bend backwards also. I've noticed that many a time. directors will bend backwards to deliver the work to you in the timeline that you want if they absolutely fall in love with the film. They will do that even at a cost sometimes that otherwise they wouldn't make it at. Right?
Also, involving them in the process, right? The beginning.
Not really. I mean, we can't involve them until we've written something. But once
But you
written,
tend to do that, right? I mean, there was one thing we were trying to do together, and we were all in one room where you also had the director, pencil, and everybody else in the room to think of.
I don't remember which one you're talking about.
It was Diageo.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, leaving that aside, so yeah.
It may have been a one-off case. I don't know what the exact project you're talking about, but very often it's after we've written, but many times before we've shared it with the client, we share it with the director. Just to get a sense, sometimes even on how long it's going to take to make that stuff. Yeah. And you know, no client or agency likes a compromised product.
Right.
Very often, we've had a situation where we've told the client, listen, if we don't have the right amount of time and the right amount of money,
Let's not do it.
Let's not make the script. We will write more. You know, and very often we found that clients find the money, they can't find the time if there are live events. But if budgets are an issue, the money gets found. But if timelines are an issue, then honesty is just collaborative on how you make it happen. Yeah. Eventually comes down to that 30-seconder. Let's say I'm just talking TV for the moment. Comes down to the 30-40-seconder, which is on television, right? If there is loss in translation from the time from the script to from page to TV, then honestly, all that time that you spent for the last 3 months is a waste of time.
Right.
It's just useless. So you have to find a way.
You have to find a workaround.
You have to find a workaround, and I think the in India, the biggest workaround, the best workaround, is to have the relationships with the best directors. You just have to have the relationships. You have the relationship
with directors or with your own teams or, you know, cross-functional teams maybe.
Yeah, of course. I'm not talking internal because, you know, the craft of the writing happens inside, but eventually the making happens outside and the making needs time. So you have to have those relationships.
Absolutely. Now just tell me, you know, one quick question before can I end this? What is that one, you know, piece of work? Okay, it could be anywhere from the world, right? Which you think the craft was so good it has left a very large impact on you. Something we're very appreciative of the craft, and it could be also, you know, not in all aspects, but you say, hey,
lots of work. I'm just going back in time. But the Guinness Purple with those horses in the water, outstanding piece. Or crafts, different. But otherwise, a lot of the John Lewis Man on the Moon, you know, a lot of the John Lewis work, I believe, with John Lewis again.
Yeah, I mean, it's perfect in a lot of aspects, right? Casting is correct, music is great.
And I'm consciously telling you different genres. So the Guinness was a scale film, but this it's got scale, but it's also got heart and emotion to it. The John Lewis one. Closer to home, I mean, the Google reunion piece that we had created with Amit. I mean, that was in OGB, not the book. I think it's this outstanding piece of filmmaking. Truecaller again, outstanding piece of filmmaking. I'm only taking Amit's films, so I'm going to get bashed around by other directors. There's a lot of thumbs up work that Bob does with Software Nate, Tufan, outstanding Boneville work. Ayyappa's work for Jindal, that steel, was it steel?
Yes.
I think it's outstanding visualization. That craft was unbelievable. His fill for Kaveri that he had done many years ago, outstanding piece of craft. Yeah, but recently there's a work that came out for BGMI, the chop fight in class. Again, very nice. It was for gaming stuff. So I thought that was good piece of craft. Yeah.
Awesome. So Navin, this is really insightful. Thank you so much for coming over and doing this.
Most
I'm sure people have a lot of takeaways from everything that you've said, and we hope to see a lot more of your wonderful work.
Yeah, hopefully. Most welcome. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.